Thank you. The recording has started. This is a run-through webinar. So this is, I guess, a little bit back to basics, although we'll jump up and down Bloom's taxonomy in terms of learning things. And hopefully that will be of interest to you, and it'll certainly keep me interested if I get to talk about some experiences in the application and good ways of using it and not just buttons and switches. So I'll get myself set up here on my screen. And we're going to use, this is Runthru Instruction today, of course, as advertised. And we'll go from absolutely the get-go of using the application. And just really the core things, and that's what I want to do today, is talk about the core things inside of the software. But we're also going to talk about kind of the uses of them in different audiences and how you might want to build different content in slightly different ways. So again, I hope this is of value to you. And once more, for those of you who've just turned up, please use the Q&A if you have any questions. We'd love to answer those for you. And of course, your questions will almost certainly be of interest to others in the session today. This is really nice for me because this is one of the biggest sessions that we've done. There's lots of people wanting to learn about the application and its usage. And as I said, I'll do my level best to give you value for your time today. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we want to share sound as well in case we want to go down the video path, which is not on the plan at the moment, but let's see what happens. So, do you see my screen? Do you see the correct screen? Yes. Okay, jolly good. It hasn't got that comforting green box around it, but I guess you're seeing the same thing I am now. All right, let's get going. I have 3 monitors on my desktop. The one you're looking at here is 1920 by 1080, 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels. The one in the middle is wider than that. I can't remember what it is. I think it's 2560 by 1080. And the third one here, which has currently got a development environment on it, is the same size as the one you're looking at here. And this is kind of the starting point for the discussion, is we want to set ourselves up properly for taking pictures, because so much of Runthru Instruction is about taking pictures and drawing on those pictures. And I'm sure you guys know that. So if you're running a 4K monitor, and it's massive, it's the size of a wall, then it's not going to be very good for taking pictures because the details in that are going to be way too small for any of the outputs. So really what you want to do is you want to be operating on a standard resolution monitor, and 1920 by 1080 is a good size to operate on. Now we're going to size the screen down a bit in the interest of safety, which I'll talk about. But if you're running like a little laptop screen, okay, you could probably get away with it, but it makes our software more difficult to operate. So 1920 1080 is I think a really quite optimum size to be working on in terms of running Runthru Instruction, and in terms of taking the pictures that we're going to need. All right. So the very first thing that you do is you start with a theme. Now we ship this or a purple one here, the Runthru theme, but you will have or should have other themes, or at least one. So if you haven't got another theme, you need one, because it's the thing that's going to style all the outputs. So underneath each of these is the color, is the fonts, is the Word template, the PowerPoint template, the SharePoint template, everything sits underneath this, right? So by choosing this, you're actually making a whole bunch of decisions. So we choose, in this case here, we're going to use Contossi. Contossi is a pretend brand, as is the Arrow company, but Contossi is a pretend brand that we're going to use today. So double clicking on this will kick off the application and put it into the, we're getting started mode. So this is the empty state of the software. And this version of the application, and the way my screen is set up, is I've got these 4 panels, 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can organize these as well. You don't have to have 4 panels. We have 4 panels. Now, I mentioned that for a couple of reasons. When we're creating our own content, we might close some of these panels to avoid kind of cognitive distraction, to avoid people seeing too much and getting overwhelmed. So when we're taking pictures of our own software, selfies, if you like, then we might close off some of the properties or the image previews. I might do that for a second just so you can see. And that just gives you more of a target area to work on. I'll come back to this afterwards in terms of managing views and things, but let's just get straight into the topic of the day. So when you first start the application, you end up with this picture in the middle, which is where the canvas will go, and the frames panel on the left-hand side. Now, there's nothing in the frames panel, so which is where you get these three little buttons here, which encourage you to bring in a picture, because the picture really is the starting point. So let's talk about bringing in a picture. Now, I've got, any of you who've seen me show this software before will know that I tend to use this application here, this dummy application, instead of using Salesforce or SAP or Xero or a homegrown application or a banking system. Not that I have a banking system because I'm not a bank, but I just use this dummy application. And I do that intentionally because this dummy application is full of ambiguity that needs to be explained to a user. There's plenty of things in here that are a bit strange and a bit complex and don't mean anything at first glance. And that the reason I use this is because that's often the user experience. It's a lot of scratching your head wondering what actually is going on in the banking system or in the CRM or in this or in that. So this is why we use this application, but you can use anything. Any application can be a target for Runthru. All right, so we need to take pictures of this. And you'll notice that it's sort of, well, 50, 60% of the size of the screen, 50% it looks like of the size of the screen. Now, usually when you and I operate any piece of software, it's in full screen mode. It looks like that. And this is this is how we operate software. Now, interestingly, Zoom isn't like that. I mean, Zoom is on its own little box on my screen, but almost everything else, Microsoft Word included, or Excel, we fill the screen. But that means when you take pictures of it, you've got a whole lot of space that you don't need. And that might give you a lesser output. It might not be as good in the output. And so what we'll do is we'll take a picture using it as full screen, and we'll take a picture using it size down in the interest of safety. And let's just compare the two. So it's an important thing, which is why I'm laboring the point here. So let's get this into the application. There are a number of ways of doing that. The easiest to explain way is this little circular recorder, the snap recorder. And I'm going to show you two ways of doing it today, but we'll use the snap recorder first. This is a little circular window. It's circular because it's supposed to be like the lens of a camera. And you put it on top of the target and you push the button and it takes a picture. Now, I know you all know that. Yeah, we all know that. But I do want to show you a couple of other important things about it. So first of all, if I push the button here, it takes a picture. A picture will appear in the left-hand column, and it will appear either at the top of the list or underneath whatever you've currently got selected. Bingo. So we've got a picture inside of there. Now, I do want to talk about full screen, so we're going to take a picture of it full screen. I'm going to pop it back out of full screen and show you something else. The snap recorder, and we'll come back to image size, but the snap recorder has a sensor on it. So what's that mean? It means it knows what it's sitting on top of. What else have we got here? Let me open another application. This one's pretty exciting, Notepad++. So it knows what it says at the top. You know, it knows the title of the screen. So it's sitting on this, it knows any application. If it's sitting on this, it knows that it's on top of Notepad++. Easy, right? But here's the little thing that is handy to know. It's sitting on top of Notepad++, still on Notepad++. Now it's on any application. So if you push the button here, you're going to get a picture of any application. So what happened there? Well, what happened there was the sensor point is in fact north of this side and west of this side, so northwest of this, top left. The sensor point is there, so if you end up over here, it'll take a picture of that. Now, this is really handy for some dialog box work, but it is something that you need to be aware of. So why didn't we put the sensor point underneath? Well, the sensor point underneath only wanted to take pictures of itself because that's the current top application. Whereas if it's up here on the top left, whatever you put it on top of, the top left of this picture knows what to take a shot of. So here is Notepad, here is any application. Okay, so it's just a little nuance, but that might save you a little bit of drama. All right, back to the topic that we had here, which was the different size screenshots. Let's get rid of this frame. So this and this are exactly the same, right? Same content, just a different size picture. So what does that matter? Well, let's mark it up. We'll talk about markup soon, and we'll put in some text, do this thing into the box, and then we'll take a copy of that and we'll plonk it onto this one, copy and paste, and do this thing. So these are, again, same content, just different size screenshots. So what? Same message, who cares? But it does make a difference. So if I was to make a Word output with exactly the same step 1 and step 2, we'll put it into Word, but this will apply to largely everything. You're going to get 2 cases. So here you've got the smaller of the screenshots, but you can see the detail better, yeah? And in the second one, same, exactly the same, and it's the same resolution. So if you could get close enough to the printed page, you'll see that it's perfect resolution, but it's not as good a result. So here, and it's not every time you're going to be able to do this, right? Sometimes you need the paddock of information, but most times you can bring in the edges of the picture and take your screen of it, rather than it looking like this, bring it down like that. Similarly, with the stuff across the top of the screen, you know, if you've got a word menu, the word menus that you don't need, or application menus or panels that you don't need, you can just bring in the environment, bring in the edges, and then you can get this result. So I'm not talking about changing screen resolution. I'm just talking about sizing the picture so that you get the result that you're looking for, or get a better result. So that's kind of key suggestion number 1. Take pictures, but take them at you know, if you can bring in the edges, bring in the edges. All right. Now, the counter of that is to crop things. And I'm going to really suggest that we don't spend too much time cropping things and using the Windows snipping tool to snip things. So let's have a talk about that. Cropping is in the application. If you go to the image menu, you can crop this picture. You can come into here and you can say, I want to trim this down to size. So you can do that. But it's not a great idea because it makes maintenance difficult for the future. There's something really important about having a full-size screenshot rather than a picture of a button. And what we've all done for years when we're making documentation is we get all excited about giving them a picture of the save button, right? Copying and pasting that into the output. And it makes the output, I guess, a little bit richer, but it doesn't really help. You know, saying press the save button is no different to just writing that as opposed to putting in a picture of the save button. So why have a full screen when you could just do it that way? Because that way is easier. Just use snipping tool and cut it out and paste it into Word. Well, it's because of the geography of the screen. Screens to you as the expert, I mean, you might just know where things are, but someone who's reading your content or watching your video has got to work harder, got to think harder about when you say do this thing. They've got to think, am I in the correct application, on the correct screen, and where is it on the correct screen, and am I in the right tab? So you're doing a lot of scratching your head when you get a simple instruction. And unfortunately, what's happened in large IT companies is we're providing briefer, not us, we're not a large company, but the large IT companies, you know, it's Oracle or it's IBM or it's Microsoft or it doesn't matter, big companies, we're giving these really brief instructions on how to do things. And they're helpful if you already know it. But if you don't know how to do something, they're not that useful. So let's have a talk about that as we fill out the instructions on this page. So this might be choose lost and future from the status list. Okay, so here's our first instruction. And yes, for those of you who have done this before, will know that these definitely need to be checked, and they're not checked. So we will come back and fix that. So even there's one simple instruction here, choose lost and future from the status list. If all you get is a line of text and you don't know this application, you're not going to know what to do. You're just not going to know. So if you end up in an output where all you see is this piece of text, what use is that? And in fact, you may not know that you have to switch to the catalog tab. Ensure you are on the catalog tab. So here we've provided a second instruction which needs to go before the first instruction. Drag and drop. You ensure you're on the catalog tab, choose lost and future from the status list. And so we'll publish the word again. We'll do some other outputs afterwards. But here we've got something that is absolutely crystal clear, which is going to be a lot better than me just carving out a piece of this image. So the contrast would be, and let's do the contrast. We'll duplicate the frame and we'll get rid of this one here and we'll just use a different tool. Status section, like this. Choose lost and future from the status list. Okay, now I'll come back and tell you why I'm doing that in a sec. All right, so this is not an uncommon thing for us to put in an output. So what happens often in technical writing land is we'll put a picture of that in it. Yes, it'll be correct. It'll have the correct things in it, but we might just do that. So what I'm suggesting to you, I know I'm laboring this point, but I think it's really important, is if you use the big pictures here, then you don't have to carve these things out. You don't have to if the screenshot has enough detail in it. Now, if it doesn't have enough detail in it, maybe it's a little bit small, then good enough, but do both. Do both those things. And so that's why I use this tool with the box attached to it. All right, so let's try and bring some of these things together. So I took the Any application, I made it, whatever it was, 60% of the size of my screen. So when it goes into the outputs, you can see more of it. Yeah, that's the idea. Then I did something a little bit tricky here. I used the second tool, the one with the box attached to it. So let's talk about these three tools here and the importance of those. These tools here create a new step. What's a step? Well, a step has text and it has a number, or if it doesn't have a number, it has a symbol of some sort. It's a step in the procedure. It's a step in the procedure. And as you draw more of these things, it makes more steps in the procedure. So this is step 5. I'll just put in some random text into the box rather than me typing something for you. So steps are sequenced and they're always sequenced. So we've got 1, 2 on this page, and then we've got 3, 4, and 5. They're always sequenced. They're always represented at the bottom of the screen. And you reorder them from the bottom of the screen. There are 3 types of these things. This is the one that you'll use most of the time. It's got a little arrow attached to it. Text and arrow is about pointing at things on the screen. Now, sometimes you'll use this one with the rectangle attached, and sometimes you use just one without any at all. This one here is really the go-to in most cases because things like this little drop-down box here, choose your system from the drop-down box. What's it called? The system menu. Choose your system from the system menu. Fair enough. Let's choose your system from the system options. How about that? If in doubt, ask your manager. Okay, I'm making this up as I go along, but I'm sure you get the idea. Okay, so here we've got some text. It's number 6, which is technically not a problem, but it doesn't look very good. 3, 4, 5, 6. We do want them to be in not only the operational order for the user, but the logical order for the user. So visually it looks right across the screen. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I've really only done a couple of things here. I've drawn with the arrow tool and I've drawn with the box tool. This one is, we've always thought about this as for special cases, and it's little detail. Little detail is what this was originally designed for. So let's publish this now, and you saw this earlier when this turned up in the output. But the idea was, if it's little detail, put it here. If it's hard to see on the picture, use the box tool. If it's hard to see on the picture, use the box. If it's not hard to see on the picture, don't use the box tool, because you don't need extra weight in this left-hand side if you don't need it. Why would you do that? You know, we want less overload for the user as they're reading it. So if we don't need the picture here, then maybe don't use the rectangle tool. Oh, I'm sorry, the text and area tool, this thing here. However, if you do want to use it, you can switch off this part of it and just keep this one. You can actually do that as well. All right, now let me show you what it really is used for. And I did show you this earlier. This is just a text editor that I use. It's very good, but it's got lots and lots and lots of funky details in it. Lots of buttons. You know, these are like software products from years ago. Lots of buttons that might be difficult for the user to find. So let's have a talk about that. Let's bring in the picture. We'll take a picture of this. We'll appropriate size again, not necessary, better. Take a picture, ends up in here. And now we've got lots of little details. So those little details, this is a perfect tool for. So we'll drag a little rectangle over this guy here. We'll give it some text. I'll just randomize the text. It's just random Latin words to sort of fill in the space and make it easier for me and for you, because you don't have to watch me try and type words that are correct. And so this is really the design of that tool, is to highlight little things. So the idea is, this is your screenshot. This is what you're looking for. This is where you should go look for it. And so you can find it easily and you can see what it looks like. So it's in the software, in the code itself, we call this a snipped image. It's a little snip of a picture pasted into this environment. That's what that's about, little snipped images. Okay, I'm going to cycle back and combine a couple of things together here. We're going to look at this. We have these tools here. These are the text and arrow tools. This one, text and arrow. We've got the text and area tool, and we've got 4 of these steps across the page in the order that is good for us. Now, you saw that I've drawn these close to the action. The number 3 is really close to the word catalog. The number 4 is really close to this, so on and so forth. What I haven't done is much of this sort of thing. I haven't taken these off the edge of the canvas, off the edge of the picture. Let's duplicate this frame again, and I'll show you why we don't do that. So now we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, and we've got 7, 8, 9, 10, which is identical. But let's pretend that we did this. We drag that out there. We drag this over here. We drag this out this side, because that sort of felt right to keep the things off the image. We'll leave that one there. So this is the same information, just a different scale, just a different design, I suppose. Let's have a look at what that does in, again, the word output, but this is the same for the other outputs as well. So This is the 3, 4, 5, 6. Good enough. This is the amount of space that you have to play with. You know, it's half of a piece of paper, right? A4 sheet of paper in our case. And this is exactly the same amount of space available, but the picture had to be, we had to shrink the picture. We had to shrink the picture to give the numbers space to go around the edge. So the amount of space we have available to create the output is the same. So we have to shrink the image down, which is, again, not an optimal result. It also means you've got to work that little bit harder to say, or the user's got to work that bit harder to say, well, where is number 8? Oh, it's over here. Where is number 9? And look, I have no science to back this up, but I'm betting that's not as good. I mean, it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't look as good. And certainly, beyond any doubt, the screenshot here is much smaller. And it's unnecessary, really. So if you can actually put things and leave them on the screenshot, then I'm going to suggest you do that, keeping these close to the action. So don't be afraid to put these on top of the picture. You're going to get a better result. Okay, so this is the one with the rectangle attached. The area tool, that's for little details. This is for pointing at things, and usually that's going to be good enough, particularly if it's a button. You know, don't be afraid to just point at a button. Try to not use this tool because it'll carve it out and put it in the output. Try and use the one with the arrow. Now, at the bottom of the screen, you can see step 7, 8, 9, and 10. And as you click on these things, you can see that there's two purple things, two purple boxes around the 7, two purple boxes around the 7. So what's that about? In that title section at the bottom where I am, it's called reorder and group. And you guys know that 7 and 8 can be reversed by doing this, 7 and 8, and 8 and 7. You know that, right? So if I drag 8 over here too far, I've got to get it so you see that gold bar turn up to actually move it around. So this dragging and dropping reorders. So why are there 2 levels of this purple stuff here? Why is there 2 boxes? And why is it called reordering and grouping? Okay, this has a number of different uses. Mostly it's about combining things together for different outputs. Some outputs it's not going to make any difference. Word, for example, won't make any difference, but it will for PowerPoint. Let's have a look at a PowerPoint output. And this one's fine. Let's just publish that. 1, 2. Actually, we might look at the second one. We'll look at the second one. Let's get that one going. You're going to start for me. Where are you, PowerPoint? Where are you? What have I done? What have I done? Normal behavior, do it every day of the week, but it's decided it's not going to play ball. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to bother thinking this through too hard, I think. Let's not do that. My apologies. My fault. On the other screen, I had a little box which I had to click on. Okay, it's not the one I want. I want this one. I want this one. We'll talk about the difference between the two of these in just a moment. So we'll publish that. Here it is. Okay. All right. See here in this output, each step, let's get rid of that. Let's go to 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all on different pictures. In PowerPoint, they're all on different slides. So this is pretty popular with trainers. The ability to, this one here, the ability to have one step per picture, one step per slide in PowerPoint. That is based on this grouping. It's the outside one that makes that work, the outside one. So if you have to develop training materials, you have two primary choices. There are others, but you have two primary choices, which is put everything on this slide, on this frame into one slide. So 3, 4, 5, and 6 all would go onto one PowerPoint slide, whereas this 3 is separate from 4, is separate from 5, is separate from 6. Okay, got it? All right. So sometimes that it's not going to make sense because it's just too little on for one step. You know, these two should be combined. That's where you do this. 7 and 8 can form a family. All I'm doing is I'm dragging from the inside into here. So I can drag from the outside and rearrange the group, or I can drag from the inside and rearrange the pieces. So 7 and 8 are now this little family. It makes no difference at all looking at the screen here. But if you were to go to that PowerPoint output again, it makes a big difference because 7 and 8 are now going to hang out together on the one PowerPoint slide. So this is this one. And so that's what that does. That grouping at the bottom of the screen allows you to bring together these elements to produce an output like that. That grouping really makes very, very little difference in Word. There is one particular case in Word where it can be used, but it makes a big difference for PowerPoint and video and e-learning because that's where we have to show things sort of one at a time. That's what that thing does at the bottom of the screen, is allows you to reorder things and group them together. Okay. Now, having done that, there is one other one in here, which is the one with nothing attached to it. This is just a text box. It has no arrows. It has no rectangles. You drag out a little rectangle. You put your text in the box. And this is a case where it's either used for, there is no screen geography to it. Maybe it applies to the whole screen. Maybe it's used as when you're making video, when you're transitioning from this screen to another screen, maybe you just want to make some commentary. So let's just explore this for a minute. So let's say, how about this? The main any application window is shown. So here's sort of an entry point that perhaps there's something happened before this. And now what we're saying is this window is now shown. So be aware that the window has changed. It's a little informational piece for the user. Let's talk about that in terms of numbering. Maybe it isn't a number at all. Maybe it's not really a warning or an information or a check or a cross, but we'll make it a warning just so you can see the difference. So we're warning them of something. Be aware that this must be approved, you know, and that could go anywhere on this page, but it doesn't necessarily have a geography. There's not necessarily a part of this page that it's connected to. Now, what's that going to do in the output though? Like, we'll put it in the middle and we'll again publish a Word. And let's just have a look at what this might do in a Word document. So we'll scroll down and we get this warning symbol sitting out here in no man's land. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it makes sense here. The main any application sort of makes sense. I know it should be a warning, but pretend it's a warning, but it doesn't have a screen. There's no piece of screen that it directly relates to. All right. So slightly more advanced. Let's clean up our Microsoft Word documents. All right, step 1, step 2, and warning. Warning comes first. You can see that here, even though it's further down the page. We've plonked it in the middle, but the warning symbol doesn't make sense to be on the screenshot, right? Doesn't make sense. So here's what we're going to do. Anything that's selected is controllable in the properties panel. So that includes changing its style. It also includes an override and advanced. So this is getting a little bit beyond the basics, but this is one of those fundamental things that sometimes you just don't want the symbol to be visible on the image. You want the warning symbol in the output, but you don't want it visible on the image because it doesn't make sense. So let's run that now. We'll get the Word dialog. We'll get Word back here for us. Here it goes. And here it is. So we've now got a warning in text, but it's no longer on the picture. So this allows you to put things on the image, which is cool, but then they only appear in text in the output. So it just gives you that bit of extra control to produce yet again a more professional output without having to just put text underneath a picture, on top of a picture, on the left or the right. You don't have to do that. You can put it on the picture so it's easy to manage, but then it won't turn up in the output. Now, there are plenty of other interesting things over here to play with, and which you, in most cases, shouldn't do. Because everything wires back to a style. Everything goes back to the style. So this sort of orange color here has been chosen for Contossi, which means it's been designed by whoever designed the theme, which means whenever you draw something, it's going to be in these orange colors. But you can override any of these individual elements and say, I want that to be a different color. We're not going to do that. I'm just pointing out that it's there. If you need to make a green one of these, you can make a green one of these without changing the style. So where were we? We were down in the advanced section to turn this off so it didn't actually turn up on the screenshot. That was this thing here. You can do the reverse of that, which is not have it in text, for example. Okay, looking good. Now we've got a series of kind of haphazard pictures here but the key things are the pictures are the right size, the content is that we've drawn is on the picture, and we're going to talk now more about text. I'm afraid I haven't kept an eye on the questions in here. Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Nope. Okay, good. Well, not good. If you've got a question, please ask. I'd be very, very happy to answer your questions in this session today. Now I want to talk about text. We've put little bits of text into these boxes, yeah? Little bits of text into the boxes. And I'm going to encourage you to, when you're creating content, to be succinct with your text. You shouldn't ever have to say this control or this check these boxes in this panel on the left-hand side of the screen. And I know we all do it because we've had to over many years, but because you're leveraging the picture so heavily in the outputs inside a run-through, you don't really have to do it here. I mean, I'm going to say choose lost and future from the status list. I'm never going to say on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm not going to say on the catalog tab because we've already established that that's where we are. I'm never going to say if you can't see this, you're probably on the wrong page, because I'm going to assume that the picture tells the user that they're in the right location or the wrong location. I've noticed that I haven't fixed this problem. I just want to fix this issue here because this is wrong. This really needs to have these two checkboxes for lost and future, which is the way the text is here. So let's just replace this screenshot now. Let's do that. So we'll use the snapping tool again. We'll put the snapping tool on top of this, put it into replacement mode. And if I push this, notice it says any application. It doesn't say Runthru Instruction. So it's on top of the target. It's in replacement mode. This is the current active window. And when I press this button, these two will switch, yeah? So let's bring that back, not that. This one here, to push the button. And this now produces the result that we're looking for. Now, let's just position this appropriately here. So choose lost and future from the status list. Obviously, it's really, really, really important that the picture matches the text. That is about as big a mistake as you can make, particularly if you're making content for an audience that's non-English speaking, perhaps, but even then it doesn't matter. You don't want to have competing information. You definitely don't want to have competing information. All right, so I've done choose lost and future from the status list. That all looks very good. Let's just talk a little bit further about grouping elements. And I do want to continue with the text discussion, but I want to talk about grouping elements as well at the same time. All right, so we're being as succinct as we can here. And that leads me on to a slightly different topic to do with text and to do with the amount of information that goes on any given screen. Let's find an example here. What we want, this is a good example, I think. Yes, this is a good example. Okay. This one here is a drop-down box called Responsible Executive. Here on this screen, we've got, well, it's empty space at the moment. There's nothing in the list here. You may be tempted to try and take a picture of this list. In some cases, that might make sense, some cases. But by and large, it's not a great idea. If you don't have to show the list, if it really is, it's an accounts payable thing and it's always only going to be choose payable or something from the list, don't bother opening it up and taking a picture of it. That doesn't make sense. Basically, what you want to do is take a picture of something in the list so they know it's there. Maybe you want to blur it, but you want to have something in the list and point at this and say, choose the responsible executive from the list. So let's swap the screenshot again because we can do that. So we'll bring this back and we'll go into swapping mode and we'll do replacement mode with a single executive in the list here. So what you do here is you'd say, choose the responsible executive from the list. You wouldn't open up that list and take a picture of it. Now, in some cases, you're going to have to. I can't think of a great example right now, but in some cases, you're going to have to. Now, this is a habit that these drop-downs can have, right? It goes off the edge of the screenshot. And if I start pushing the take a picture button, that's going to disappear. You know, it's going to disappear as I take a picture. I'm going to lose it. And I'm going to end up with this collapsed. So we've got a couple of issues here. We really, for whatever case, want to have this open list, but it's off the end of the picture. So let's look at ways that we could capture that picture better, and because we want the open list. All right, I'm going to use this. This is different. This thing here is called auto paste. This is another way that you can get images into the environment. This was the original way of doing it. It's, for many people, it's better than using the snapping tool. The snapping tool is easy to understand. And if people like using it, it's fantastic. I use it too, but I tend to use this one. This is called auto paste. What on earth is auto paste? It is another method of getting pictures into the environment. So let's do that. Let's just take another picture of this. We'll take a picture of this one here. But instead of using the circular tool, I'm going to put this window on the top. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and I'm going to hit print screen on the keyboard. Alt print screen is a Windows thing. It takes a picture of the current active window. So it takes a picture of it and puts it into here. This one, Alt print screen, grabs the current active picture and puts it into there. Print screen on its own will give you an entire desktop. And in my case, that would give us the 3 panels. And that's no use at all. But this also works with the snipping tool. So if you bring up the Windows snipping tool, which you know can either select a whole window or it can select an individual part of a screen. So we can do this. And I'll just crop it just so you can see it turn up inside of the output. and here it is here. So by using the Windows snipping tool, the picture will turn up. So that the way that we use this, even when we're documenting our own material or assisting customers, is we would typically use this. So the methodology that we would use, or the process that we would use, is we get the target application. We set up all of the steps on the screen, as many as we can, and not having this open, and I will come back and talk about this in a minute, but not having this open, we do as many steps as we can in here, and then we take a picture of it, Alt print screen. And then we move on to the next screen. So the Runthru Instruction is probably not even in play. And then we do what we have to do here, and we take a picture, and typically I would have this set up to not pop up again, and then I'd move on to the next screen, I do whatever we have to do, and then I take a picture of it. And then if I got it slightly wrong, well, that's okay. I just come back into here and I take another picture of it, right? Alt print screen. And so that's kind of the way that we operate it. I mean, the key thing being setting up the scene so that, like a photographer is setting up the scene, right? And you're doing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 steps on the screen, and then you take a picture. And then you take a picture. So it's the post case. It is where the work is already done. You're not trying to create this empty state, then do one thing and take another picture, then do one thing and take another picture, then do one thing. You're not doing that. You're basically setting up the scene with various things already in place. So it is, dear user, this is what it's going to look like when you do it. You know, this is the end result that you're looking for. And that's a whole part of the ethos of this application, is let's get a succinct number of screenshots of an appropriate size with clear instructions on them, which are sitting very close to the action, so you can produce these brilliant outputs without having to work too hard. And the added benefit, of course, being if there's 8 or 9 steps on one picture, if there's a mistake on the picture, you fix it, replace it, and publish again, and job's done. So this is kind of what it's all about. Now, the way you get the pictures in doesn't really matter whether you use the snapping tool or whether you use this auto paste tool. It's up to you, but give this a go. Now, where we were a second ago was talking about that drop-down menu that was hanging off the bottom of the screen. And so if the drop-down menu here is hanging off the bottom of the application, you're probably going to have to use the Windows snipping tool. And don't be tempted to do this, because it's really not going to give you an optimal result. It's just going to give you that list. You might want to do this, which is take a picture that extends below the bottom of the screen to pick up that thing. But what's better is if you position your target window at the bottom of the screen, in this case, that little drop down will drop up, if that makes sense. So if it's here, it drops down, but if there's not enough space on the screen, it will pop up. And that's a better picture if you have to use it. And so we'll take a picture of that using the Windows snipping tool. It copies it to the clipboard, and it will appear in here, and now you've got this list. So again, I don't recommend you doing this, but in some cases, maybe you do have to show the whole list, and in which case, this is probably a good way of doing it, using auto paste and using the Windows snipping tool to be able to get the result. Okay, let's have a look. All right, let's get on to, some more text. So I've spoken about being succinct with text on pictures, because the picture will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You will always, not always, in many cases, you're going to have a lot more text than I've got in these examples. Now, you can put as much text into these little boxes as you want. So I've filled it up with dummy text, and you'll get this little plus overload. You know, there's too much in here, it's saying to you. That's good, too much. You can largely ignore that, because when you edit it, you're going to double click on it to open it up. This is just an indicator that there's more text here, but don't don't clumsy the screen. You don't need to. You can just leave it like that. And if you can get over the fact there's a little plus there, you should, because it's easier to manage your screen when there's 16 things on this screen that are using space. It's easy to do that by having them collapse, so you don't have to expand them. So that was something there I wanted to talk about. Now, we've only got screenshots in this example. You're going to have to use text frames. Text frames, which are available here on the frames list and here on the frames menu. This is a way, same thing, text, the same. This is a way of adding headings and non-image content to your document. There should always be one at the top, always. You might need more, but there should always be one. So I'm going to explain this little window here for you. And I'm quickly going to look at my list here and make sure I'm cut, because we've only got a few minutes to go. I want to make sure I'm covering off everything that was really important. Clipboard, copy files. Blurring. We haven't spoken about blurring and image editing. So let's do this text first, and then we'll finish with the back on the images again. All right. This is a text frame. This has a picture. This is an image frame. This is a text frame. It has a title, text, and title style. My heading, my document title. And here is some content. All right, so my document title deserves to be a title. Let's do another one. And we'll put it a couple down the list here. This is my section title. And here is some information related to this. Okay, so these are important because this tops and tails the document, right? This one here, this is the top of the document, and this is important because it might appear in a certain section in the document. Here, we'll put it here. So let's have a look at the effect of changing title to heading 2. So we'll publish this again to Word, and then we'll do it to PowerPoint. And the same will apply in video. It will get a different treatment in video. We might have a very quick look at that. So top of the document, title style. Inside of here, heading 2. So depending on what you choose in those text boxes will make a big difference to what this looks like in any given output. This one here is PowerPoint, right? So let's have a little look at the PowerPoint output. We've now got 18 frames, and this is title style, and this one here is section style. So in the case of PowerPoint, it actually uses a different PowerPoint master, I think they're called. So it's not just changing the size of the text. In this case here, it could be a picture of a mountain scene with the text in white over it in a certain size. And in this example here, it might be just this black on white or gray on white. Different positioning, different background. And the same applies to video. And so I won't make a video for you today, but let's just let this go through, build up the scenes, and then I can show you the title, and then I can show you the this heading 1, or this heading 2. So this one here is the first scene. So it's big purple background with the text that looks like that. And the second one, this is heading 2. So kind of like PowerPoint, it's changed it. Now, these are also important for doing things like table of contents. Like in a Word document, you might end up with a table of contents. So a little bit beyond what we were talking about today. But if you put a TOC into here, you're going to find that my section title appears in the table of contents. So those things, they're more than just kind of a little bit of cosmetic treatment. Even in video, they'll make chapters in the video automatically as well. So that's what that does. And the one final thing on my list that I wanted to talk about was just in the image menu here. There's lots of buttons and switches in this application. The fundamental ones are really these markup elements. This one, this one, and this one in particular, right? This third one here is good for some special cases, but you're going to have to use blur. Everyone has to use blur because there's inevitably going to be something in here that is confidential, because none of us have the luxury of working when we're making documents on sandpit systems, or it doesn't happen very often. And even if we do, then they ship the product, make a change, and then we have to work on a live system to replace the screenshots. So blurring tool, almost inevitable, you're going to have to use that. Redaction is very similar. It just leaves a black rectangle behind. And there are some other things here which allow you to cut your image up into pieces and glue it back together again, which are kind of cool. But if you have to do that, maybe there's a different issue, right? And maybe that's something that's worthwhile talking about. If you need to move pieces of a screenshot around, it's usually better to just replace that piece of the picture. Okay, so look, in summary, take the images, get them the right size, smaller than 1920 1080, draw on them using primarily this tool with the arrow attached to it, keeping it close to the action and using a succinct amount of information that's appropriate for the audience at hand. If you have to labor the point, okay, do so, but tend to lean towards leveraging the screenshot. If the document you're creating is for just someone who is already across this knowledge, sure, use Runthru, but don't even say choose lost and future from the status list and a whole bunch of Latin words. Just say choose these selections as shown. You know, if you can get away with it, quote unquote, sometimes it's not a bad idea, and it allows you to get more work done, which is what it's all about, at a higher quality. And so once you've done all that, then you should be in good shape, you know. All right, so that's it. I think we've done our hour together. I hope it was of value to you. If you need help or you've got questions, please reach out. I mean, the website's very good. There's a support site, support.runthru.com, which is very good, but just ask. You know, we're here to help. We really do appreciate your business, and we'll work hard to make sure that we give you what you need. All right, there's one question, I think, here. Let's have a quick look. And it's thanks very much. All right, good on you, Jordan. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate your time, everybody. Have a great day. Bye for now.